Skulls Out by Phil Wingfield. The protagonists in this tale are myself and Dave Jackson. Kumbh Mela, 3rd of February 2019. A 10-hour stroll around the Mela has taken its toll and we're heading back to get some rest. Tomorrow is the big day and the earliest of early starts. Approaching the bridge across the Ganges nearest to our camp, I have a horrible sinking realization. The bridge has a barrier across the entrance and several police officers on direction control. The few people using it are all heading this way. Why did I not think to check? The one-way rule as applied to these crossing points by the Allahabad Constabulary is immutable. To do anything other than accept we're screwed is futile. We give it a go regardless, but it just makes for a slightly longer walk back. It's a bloody long way back to the last bridge and I am knackered. To add to the sheer delightful prospect of the long trudge, a recent niggling discomfort in the lower abdomen has become more and more insistent that I find a toilet, quickly. I was hoping to make it back to camp, but there's no chance of that now. Opposite the bridge stands a row of bright blue public toilet cubicles. I recall toilets of Mela's past that were nothing more than screening. Maybe a piece of plyboard or some sacking hanging on a couple of poles, just a screen and a ditch. No one could see you go, but that was the extent of it, if I remember correctly. These cubicles are a significant step up, and there are thousands of them around the site. But they are still public toilets. I've seen a fair few over the years, and there have been times when I've had to consider which is the worst option, using the toilet or just crapping myself. Hopefully, one or two of these don't immediately make me chuck on opening. I have my loo paper. Never leave camp without it. Well, actually, I have Dave's loo paper. Never leave camp without your Dave. There are quite a few cubicles, but most of them are squat toilets, foot plates on either side of a ceramic receptacle in the ground. 3 cubicles have seated accommodation. No cubicles have a flush mechanism. To the side of the toilets is a standpipe surrounded by discarded plastic jugs. There's your flush mechanism. Have you ever flushed a toilet using a 1-litre jug of water? Of course not. And neither has anyone here. I go for the cubicle that makes me want to gag the least. But there is a slight drawback with the seating arrangements. Both types of loo are fitted to the same waste pipe. The difference in design makes the seated option a little constricted. Standing in front of the toilet, I pull the door shut and realise just how much room there isn't. I can sit down, but my knees press against the door and leaning forward is impossible. Struggling to do the necessary in the confined space causes me to headbutt the door several times and kick over my flush mechanism in the process. But thinking about that now, the jug isn't for flushing at all. It's the toilet paper. So what happens as regards moving on the unmentionables? A pressure washer, maybe? Dynamite? That's probably way too much info. Sorry, but you've heard it and you can't unhear it. The thought of backtracking fills me with dread after the cramped Carsey caper. It is quite a distance to the previous bridge. Heading back, the road veers away from the river and directions are invariably vague. It's over there, somewhere, they say, while pointing in the general direction of the Ganges lying just behind an ocean of canvas and tarpaulin. And there are more guarded one-way systems. What is the easiest way to get to that bridge? The river. Several boats moored up just along from the bridge are up for hire. It was never going to be cheap. But 1,200 rupees? I've paid 4 rupees for 10 times the distance on a ferry. 1,200 rupees? We managed to drive it down to 800, which again is both a lot and a little. 4 quid each for a leisurely boat trip isn't much. 8 quid in India is quite a lot, especially for 25 minutes work. However, it is a pleasant and genteel trip back. Children wave to us from the bank and we are buzzed by flocks of birds. There are other boats on the river, but they are distant specks. I consider, briefly, how much it would cost us to cross the river to the opposite bank, but I know I wouldn't pay it. But I have to say, it was a pleasant trip. The 4 of us, the sound of the oars, and the birds twittering on a nearby mudbank. One of the boatmen points to the mudbank. Yes, the birds, I know, I hear them. But it's not the birds he's pointing at. It's a human skull. Oh, right, the skull. What the Yeah, a human skull. An actual human skull, sitting side on, not 30 metres away. I scrabbled for my camera before we moved too far away. Yes, it's a tad gruesome, but it's not every day you row past a human skull, now is it? Is it? So what happened to that poor soul? Was it a rap, wait and dump, or river burial? Accidental drowning? Murder? All sorts of scenarios flashed through my mind. Do we tell anyone? Do we tell the police? Would they do anything? Probably not. Imagine if the Allahabad Constabulary did as the police at home. 3 or 4 cars and an ambulance would come screaming down to the riverbank, sirens blaring. The senior officer would leap into action and take charge of the situation. Right, cordon off the area and round everyone up for questioning. Sir? Yes, underling? Sir, the area is 35 square kilometres and there are over 50 million people here. Well, you better damn well get on with it then, hadn't you? We disembark onto a narrow beach. The water is shallow for a good few metres out. It's good for puja and good for business. Vendors of puja ware and mystic service dispensaries line the beach. At the bridge, 100 metres or so away, stands a group of policemen. No, there really is no point. That skull has probably been there for months. Nothing has happened so far and nothing ever will. Unless... Glancing back at the mudbank, I wonder, does heading through customs with a human skull in my luggage contravene any import regs? Skulls Out, which as it turned out was 50% log out, was written and read by Phil Wingfield.